we doing, analysts? This is Jason Elder. I am with Alex Gulde, who's here to give us an update with IALEIA. How we doing, Alex?
Hey, Jason, doing well. Hey, analysts, glad to be talking to you all.
All right. What's going on with IALEIA?
So, got a couple updates. I want to share some information from the most recent board meeting last Saturday, and then plus another few recent announcements that came out. So, I want to start talking about the conference. So, the IALEIA LEAU training event annual training conference is scheduled for April 22, 26, 2024, and will take place in New Orleans, Louisiana. So, the registration is now open, and I just checked out the hotel website today. It's the Hilton New Orleans Riverside. Looks like a pretty cool location for a conference. Looking forward to going. So on that note, we also have a call for speakers and presentations open, and that just opened the last few days. So I took a look at that, and the long and short of it is that
Just keep on going. Sorry.
So for folks that might be interested in submitting a presentation, here's the short version, but you can also look that up on the website, of course. But interested individuals are requested to submit a proposal of 1 page or less on one of the following topics. And they're looking for either something on cyber investigations, intel analysis, organized crime, terrorism, both varieties, domestic or international, gangs, smuggling, human trafficking, investigative criminal intelligence, or any other topic that is relevant or has current trends or issues facing law enforcement with either investigative or intelligence nexus. The idea is that proposed presentations are about 75 to 90 minutes long, and presenters may be asked to present twice. So this is what happened to me a couple of years ago when I presented. Which is fine. You just get to run through your presentation on 2 days. They will accept presentations or proposals rather until December 8th, and then notifications will be made in February 2024. So this is what I have to say on top of this. If you are trying to attend the conference and you need this little extra thing to convince your leadership or your agency that you should be going, submit a proposal for a presentation. If it gets accepted, then you can say, oh, I've been invited to present. You should most definitely let me go. And I can't tell you specifically what IALEIA does to help. They don't cover all the expenses, but they do help a little bit in defraying the cost, either covering a hotel night or two or waiving the registration fee.
But I think it's actually both. I think it's registration fees waived and one night hotel stay.
I think that sounds right, actually. I think that's what they did to me, which was great. It certainly helped sell to my agency, and I hope that they continue to do that stuff. So if you have something to talk about, to share, whether it was an interesting case you worked or a new technique or just a different way to think about a particular issue or so, please submit a proposal. We'd love to hear from you. And when I say we, I say this as an attendee, not as a member of the presentation screening committee or anything like that. So I'm just an interested party who loves to hear interesting stories. So.
And what is the date to accept proposals till?
December 8th.
Okay. All right. So we got a couple of weeks yet.
Yeah, so a few more weeks, and then they will make notifications sometime in February 2024. So that gets relatively close to the deadline for the conference, but certainly doesn't hurt to get your proposal in and go from there.
And very good. And it says in the flyer here during the time is right next to Jazz Fest. So right. You could stay a couple extra days there maybe, and join Jazz Fest there in New Orleans, which I can only imagine would be fantastic.
I agree. That would be pretty neat. So maybe add a day or 2 or 3. So who knows? Right?
Very good.
Cool. I have one other call for proposals that I want to talk about, and that's nominations for professional service awards. So the awards committee is chaired by John Smith, longtime IALEIA member, all around great guy out of Las Vegas. Shared this. They are now accepting nominations for the 2024 IALEIA Professional Service Awards. For those that may not know, there's multiple awards given every year. There's an IALEIA Award for Excellence at the organization level. There are usually 3 awards given at the local, at the state, province, or regional level, and then at the national/international level. Then there's an award for excellence at the individual level, and this is an award that recognizes up to 6 individuals for outstanding contributions as analysts, investigators, or prosecutors who utilized intelligence to advance a case, solve a problem, and so on. And then there's also the award for excellence at the executive manager or supervisor level, and they recognize one individual every year for outstanding support and advancement of the intelligence analysis function. And then there's also you may remember the IALEIA President's Award. That's a wild card because the president gets to decide who gets it in what year. So they're looking forward to seeing these nominations. So if there's somebody in your field, either in your chapter, in your agency, or somebody you've worked with who might be deserving of that recognition, take the time to nominate them and submit that nomination to the committee. They love reading the stories. They're recognizing people. And even if they don't necessarily win the award, being nominated is a great way to recognize somebody's contribution and achievement within the field. So the deadline for submission is a little bit further out. It's Friday, January 19th, 2024. And they're pretty detailed nomination instructions on the website. So there's no problem to get to IALEIA.org. And it's in one of the sliding banners there right now. So easy to get to.
All right. And we'll have the links to both the conference and the awards in the show notes. So, all right, Alex, good stuff so far. What else you got?
So next few things I want to talk about were from the last board meeting, and that took place on Saturday, November 11th. This was a virtual meeting via Teams, and I had the chance to dial in and listen in. So the way this usually works for those who have never attended a board meeting is all the directors give their reports, their monthly reports, and then they discuss different things, and there are certain items that the board as a whole needs to vote on, and so on. And that's the business meeting that they go through. I'm not going to go into every detail of every report that was provided, but there are a few things that I think would be interesting. I want to start with the treasurer's report, Miss Peggy Pingle, who is new in that role, and she talked a little bit about follow-up to an audit that they did looking into IALEIA's finances. And the long and short of it is that, and this is my takeaway as a non-accountant and non-auditor, is that the financial foundation of the association is strong. And she talked a little bit about different best practices that they're implementing, both in accounting and financial management. And as a stakeholder and dues-paying member, I felt comfortable with what she was saying, and they were talking about some of the balances in the different accounts. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. So they're on a strong foundational footing, and I think that's a financial footing, and I think that's a good thing. So want to share that. The other report that I want to highlight is the report from the chapter director. This is Miss Kelly Kimsey, recently elected to the board in that role, but longtime IALEIA member and chairperson as well. She talked about a meeting she had with all the chapter presidents recently. Lots of interesting stuff there, lots of activities. The chapters are doing a lot of things. They're doing a lot of training. They're hosting a lot of interesting speakers, and we are growing in terms of number of chapters. For example, there's a new chapter in Washington State that just formed in August of this year, and they're already off to doing some pretty interesting things, including scheduling a Fiat class for 2024 to serve their members across all of Washington State. If you have had a chance to look at the most recent Intelscope, the November Intelscope, you'll see this is all about chapters. That's a chapter issue, and there's some really neat profiles of the different chapters. They're doing activities both nationally in the US and internationally, whether we're talking Jamaica or in Nigeria. There's some interesting work that is being done, and I was really entertained reading that. So Kelly, who is the new chapter director, she was a long time chair of the chapter support committee. And when I asked her at some point how to best describe that role, she said, oh, that's the chief of staff to the chapter director, basically. And so she did that role for a long time for Phil, who had the director's position beforehand. Now that she was elected into the chapter director role herself, that position was vacant, and a Miss Christine Largaspada, who is actually the president of the South Florida chapter, has been nominated and then appointed by the board to be the new chapter support committee chair. So that is forthcoming.
When you said Phil, is that Phil Powell?
Yes. Okay. That's who I meant, exactly, Phil Powell. Yeah. So that's the story of the chapters. And if you haven't picked up the November Intelscope, as I said, I recommend reading it. It's pretty interesting stuff. The new group, Emerging Professionals, Noemi Eckhoff, has been busy and charging ahead. She has organized 2 webinars in the last few months, one with Dawn Reedy, who, for folks who are veterans in the Intel analysis field, she's a longtime analyst, turned trainer, motivational speaker. Always good to hear from Don, to reflect on your profession, on your life, how to balance these things, and to get the most out of your career. And then the other webinar that just happened yesterday, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it and listen to it, it was Mr. Barry Zulov, who is the chair of the International Association for Intelligence Education, or president, I believe, longtime analyst at the federal level, very involved with, previously involved Office of Director of National Intelligence. And I've had the opportunity to listen to him speak before at a conference. Great speaker, quality speaker, always inspirational. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the Emerging Professionals Group has on deck next for webinars. So I thought that was pretty neat, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Noemi can bring in the future. Let's see, what else? I have training and certification. In 2023, IALEIA offered a total of 16 Fiat courses.
Wow.
Which may be a record, actually. I'm trying to remember if they were talking about it, if they determined that that was a record or close to, but it's a good number of courses, because there's quite a bit of work that goes into staffing these courses and delivering them. And they're already busy scheduling courses for 2024. I've looked on the website just a little bit ago, and there's already 5 or 6 courses on the books for 2024, with more being scheduled according to the coordinator, Stacy Gosnell-Day. So if you haven't taken one yet, see if you can get yourself to one. And if you like to be involved as an instructor, do reach out to Stacy and see if that's something you want to do. We've talked about this before, I believe, the renewal work for the curriculum. The committee that was formed to look at the content of the course is substantially done with the work. There's some minor editing and formatting going on, and some graphics work, but it continues to progress at pace, and Fiat 4.0, as they call it, will be rolled out in 2024. So I presume that they are aiming to any course that is being offered in 2024 will be under the new curriculum.
Okay.
On the certification front, the certification chair was vacant for quite some time, and I don't even recall who was in the position beforehand, but it took them a while to find the right person to take that on. And the board has now appointed Mr. Joseph Stobie to serve as the new chair of the certification committee. Joe's a longtime volunteer with the program. He's a criminal intelligence certified analyst himself, and his leadership and service will be greatly appreciated to support the certification program. What the program does, in short, is run the certification program, administer the exams, work with proctors in the field, look at the content of the exam questions, and make sure that people become certified, remain certified, get recertified on the appropriate timetables, and so on. So there's quite a bit of work that happens behind the scenes, and Joe is now stepping into the chair of the certification committee role. So that's pretty exciting.
Very good.
We also may recall that not too long ago, they being the IALEIA board, advertised for a administrative assistant position. The previous person was with them for a long time, moved on into a newer, different role. And the search committee interviewed several candidates, and they found a person who really impressed them. Unfortunately, this was just like a teaser, because they were just talking about this person, how wonderful they are. They didn't give a name, and they said they would like to make a job offer. So I hope that the next time we talk, we'll have an actual person to introduce.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And nothing came. So that was that. There were 2 more things that I want to mention. So IALEIA still does not have a vice president currently. And during my time on the board call, I had to leave after about 2 hours. This topic was not addressed. So I don't know what the status is, or if there's something in the works, but IALEIA does not currently have a vice president. And then the last point that I want to make, and I've said this before, and I sound like a broken record sometimes, but board meetings are open to the membership. They generally take place on the second Saturday of every month. And if you are interested in listening in, the IALEIA secretary, Lynn McCluskey, will share the call-in information if you reach out to her. The reason I say this is you don't have to be, as a board member or as a member of the association, be intimately familiar with everything that is going on. Maybe you're happy to receive your Intelscope every month, to be able to have access to the member directory and go to the conference every so often. But there's so much happening with the association. And if you ever think about maybe stepping into a different role, stepping up to volunteer or into another service position, this is a great way to learn about the association. listening to those board calls. This is an important aspect of association management. And this is ultimately our association as members. And this is something that I find interesting to see how decisions are being made, how resources are being steered, and what's important to the board. And hopefully that is in line with what's important to the membership as well.
So back to the vice president's vacancy, normally the plan is that since it's past the election period, the president needs to nominate somebody, and then the board as a whole needs to vote that person in order to get a vice president or any vacancy position.
That is my understanding. Yes, that is
okay.
How vacancies on the board get filled.
Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're interested in, we need somebody to step up and take the vice president spot.
That's right.
All right. Well, very good stuff, Alex. I will leave the audience with IALEIA folks. I'd love to have more analysts on the podcast. So if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, I'd love to have you, current or former analyst. I'd love to get your perspective and contributions to the profession. So email us at leapodcasts@gmail.com and we'll get you set up on the podcast. All right, Alex, anything else?
That's about it. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next on deck, but I'm not sure if we're going to have a board meeting in December. I think the next one will be in January, so we might be talking then.
All right, very good. Thanks, Alex.
My pleasure.
All right.